Everybody keeps talking about Cooper DeJean's new role heading into year 2, but I actually think cornerback Quinyon Mitchell is in for more heading into 2025. We'll get into that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome into this Thursday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louie DiBiase. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com. You're going to get 50% off your first year. Day 2 of practice today at the NovaCare Complex as the Eagles continue training camp as they get ready for the 2025 season. And as I was preparing for this episode, it's kind of funny. Vic Fangio said something during his press conference that was exactly what I wanted to discuss to open up today's show. And it's the idea of Quinyon Mitchell in year 2 shadowing star receivers more than he did in his rookie season. I think Quinyon Mitchell is absolutely ready to take that next step, to shadow star receivers in year 2. We've talked a lot on this podcast, and a lot of other media platforms have discussed, and have asked Vic Fangio himself, the possibility, the idea of Cooper DeJean having a new role this year in year 2, taking on more. Last year, he was one of, if not the best nickel cornerbacks in football already as a rookie. Now this year, we've been wondering, is he going to play more safety? Is he going to play some outside corner? Is he going to be used as this mismatch kind of defensive back Swiss Army knife like Malcolm Jenkins was from 2014 to 2019? And then we saw Fangio doing it at practice. Even today, in base defense, Cooper DeJean's been playing safety next to Reed Blankenship. During the spring, there were times he was playing outside cornerback in base packages opposite Quinyon Mitchell. So DeJean's new role this year has kind of been the talk of the town in the Eagles secondary. And it's also because we already knew DeJean heading into the NFL had a versatile skill set where teams and scouts were trying to figure out what he would do best at this level. So naturally, we just always discuss this about Cooper DeJean because we didn't know coming out of Iowa, is he an outside corner? Is he a nickel corner? Is he a safety? But I actually think Quinyon Mitchell is the one that's in store for a bigger role this year, that's in store for something more. Like he is going to be wearing more hats this year than I think he did as a rookie. And I think one of those hats is going to be in the form of shadowing star receivers in man coverage. I would absolutely love to see that this year in certain matchups where, and I wouldn't suggest this against teams that have 2 to 3 really elite pass catchers, right? It's more, the idea was when you play teams like the Dallas Cowboys, right? And yeah, they traded for George Pickens, but he's not a guy that would stop me from having Quinyon Mitchell shadowing CeeDee Lamb for 4 quarters, whether he's in the slot, he's on the left-hand side, he's on the right-hand side. Like, I want Quinyon Mitchell covering CeeDee Lamb all game long. Offenses that have, one true star pass catcher, those are the situations where I would really like Fangio to explore the possibility of Quinyon shadowing in man coverage. Like, when they play, if he's still in Washington, Terry McLaurin, like they did last year where Quinyon was all over him in that first Thursday night game and completely erased him. When they play, honestly, anybody in the NFC East, like the New York Giants, they only have one elite pass catcher as well, and it's Malik Nabers. I would love to see this year when they play the Giants twice that wherever Malik Nabers goes, Quinyon Mitchell goes. Maybe even when they play the Minnesota Vikings this year, I know they also have Jordan Addison, but he might be serving a suspension. We'll see. Even if not, I would want Quinyon on Justin Jefferson all game long. And look, I know that the majority of the time on defense, Fangio is going to use zone concepts more than man, but I just think that against these kind of teams, you're putting your defense at a disadvantage when you play a team like this that can just keep their star pass catcher away from your star cornerback. Like, they could just keep CeeDee Lamb on the other side if they know that Quinyon Mitchell is only going to play the right side of the field and he's not going to move in zone or even in man coverage. And I know the Eagles have, it's not a huge disadvantage because the Eagles have other good defensive backs. They have Cooper DeJean, who was 3rd in the league this year in man coverage, or in 2024. Quinyon Mitchell, though, was 2nd. That's how good Quinyon Mitchell was as a rookie in man coverage. And we saw that one instance where he was on Terry McLaurin for 4 quarters. He aligned across from Terry McLaurin in that first Thursday night game on 20 of McLaurin's 25 routes, 80% of his routes, including 19 of 20 aligned wide, 95% of those snaps. Mitchell was not targeted on any of his coverage snaps against Terry McLaurin, was targeted just once in that game with 0 receptions allowed. Like, that is the potential of Q. And again, it's not a massive disadvantage because DeJean is an elite man coverage corner in his own right. I think Kelee Ringo is going to be good this year, but Mitchell is your alpha that can cover any kind of wide receiver. A big receiver, a twitchy route runner, a small burner like Rashid Shaheed, Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb. It doesn't matter. Q showed you last year that he can cover all different types of receivers. Xavier Worthy in the Super Bowl completely shut him down on deep routes. I want to explore this possibility more this year. And as I was planning for today's show to discuss this, Fangio talked about in his press conference the idea of Quinyon Mitchell playing more left cornerback so far in training camp so he can learn both sides, because when they do play man coverage, when they are in matchups against these kind of offenses that have one elite cornerback or receiver, they can use Quinyon Mitchell to completely shadow him. And I think there's even ideas that you can kind of mesh zone and man. I think Fangio could figure out different kind of concepts as well that almost stem to, basketball X's and O's, right? In basketball, there's a zone coverage called box and one, where it's a zone coverage concept on defense, but there's also one guy that's playing man on defense that's covering the other team's star offensive player that normally has a high usage rate, normally ball handles a lot. When they want to shut down just one player and the rest of the team plays zone, it's called box and one. I would love to see Fangio even use that kind of concept this year with Quinyon Mitchell in 2025, where, yeah, you're still having like bracket zone coverage concepts, but let's say, again, they're playing the Dallas Cowboys or the Washington Commanders or the Minnesota Vikings. Quinyon Mitchell, his assignment is to go follow Justin Jefferson, is to go follow CeeDee Lamb, to go follow Terry McLaurin. I really like that idea. And again, I know that they're going to be okay if DeJean's got to cover CeeDee Lamb or it's got to be Kelee Ringo, but Quinyon Mitchell is your best man coverage defensive back this year. And when you're playing teams like that, it drives me absolutely nuts. And I'm somebody that's very pro man coverage. I love man coverage. That's the concept. That's the scheme I would have if I was a defensive coordinator, even though that's not realistic in the modern day NFL. I want man coverage, and it drives me absolutely nuts when I see a team's offense call their star pass catcher in motion. They go to the other side of the field, away from your star corner, and your corner stays on that side and is covering some scrub. Is covering some third or fourth receiver. Like, that absolutely drives me crazy. And it's awesome to hear that Fangio's exploring this idea. Again, it's only in certain packages when they're playing man coverage, which is not the majority of the time. The majority of the time, they're still going to play zone. If it's not broken, don't fix it. They were an elite coverage secondary last year. But when they do play man, when they do play these kinds of teams with one true elite pass catcher, I like that Fangio's thinking what I'm thinking. Let's move 27 around the formation. Let's not only have him play right cornerback, but, hey, he has slot experience under his belt. He played slot all summer last year in training camp and in the preseason. And now, so far in training camp this week, Fangio's been having Quinyon play on the left side, which is interesting because, again, last year, Mitchell only played right corner. And the idea behind him playing on the left side this year is so he has experience playing at all three spots at cornerback. So if they do want to shadow him, they can do it. And that's music to my ears because it's so funny. I was literally planning the show around this idea. I turned on Fangio's press conference and boom, he talked about that. So that's awesome to hear, and it's really exciting because I think, again, DeJean is going to play some safety this year, boundary corner. Maybe you move him across the formation as well. But Quinyon Mitchell is the one that I think could be in for a bigger role in 2025, which sounds crazy because he was one of their best players on defense last year and was a Rookie of the Year finalist. But I think this idea of shadowing him, using him kind of like the Jets use Sauce Gardner, the Texans use Derek Stingley, the way the Broncos use Pat Surtain, I think the Eagles are considering it with Mitchell, and I think he's up for the challenge. Again, NFL executives ranked Quinyon already heading into year 2 as the 9th best cornerback in football. He had the second highest man coverage grade in the 2024 season, according to Pro Football Focus. Like, it's crazy that when he headed into the draft coming out of Toledo, there were questions about his ability to play man coverage. Like, we've come a long way since those concerns, those draft narratives during the 2024 offseason. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. I was thinking more about that Jalen Hurts press conference yesterday, and I've been thinking a lot about these quarterback debates we've been having over the last month and a half. I do think people are kind of prisoners of the moment. There's recency bias with Jalen, and they forget just actually how much he can carry and elevate an offense, and I have stats to prove it. I'm going to get into that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thursday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. We are brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy Football. That's right, fantasy football season is here. Fire up the group chat, get your draft boards ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions that we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy this year. Myself, the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. For me, I've been doing a fantasy league with all my friends growing up since 2009. We've been playing on Yahoo Fantasy. We have our keeper draft actually in just a couple weeks. And to celebrate, it's awesome. Yahoo Fantasy has so many features, including keeper leagues that I do with my friends. They actually have, to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new time features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. And it all begins in just a few weeks on August 4th. So stay tuned to get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. So it's interesting. I was listening to Jalen Hurts' press conference again from yesterday, and I thought it was really impressive hearing him talk about, what it takes to win, even if that means being a game manager like he was in 2024. Him learning that he's got to do what it takes for his team to win. He can't always get caught up in what people expect him to do, what people think is the right way to win, no matter what the situation is, no matter what your personnel is, no matter what your team is. You can't get caught up in that. You can't get caught up in individual stats being a priority over winning at all costs. And it feels like Jalen really last year was true to that he was so committed to winning at all costs that personal accolades absolutely meant nothing to him. Whereas like A.J. Brown, even in his press conference yesterday, he's still back and forth. Like, he wants to prove that he's the best receiver in football this year. I think one of his goals is to go back to who he was in 2022 and 2023, where he's a 1,400 plus receiving yards kind of player. But he's got to balance that with, at the same time, having winning be the priority and being a team first guy. And he talked about finding that balance. With Jalen Hurts, I don't think there is a balance. Like, he truly, if he threw for 67 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, and had a pick, but the Eagles won 17-13 every game, and he won 3 rings that way, I think Jalen Hurts, I truly believe he's such a psycho for winning and for winning championships that he would sign up for that right now. And so that's such an important trait to have at quarterback, and I talked about that yesterday. But I do think people got too caught up in his play style last year, and now it does feel like, because he fully embraced that game manager role for the majority of 2024, people almost think like that's who he is and that he can't elevate an offense, even with the weapons that he has. Like, I think people have really forgot about the 2022 and the 2023 season. I think they only remember the collapse of 2023, where I got to admit Jalen Hurts was not good. He did not carry the offense the way he should have, as a franchise quarterback should, in an instance where he needed to do that because his team needed him. Everything else was failing around him, and he was not able to elevate. And they remember the first 4 games, which were kind of shaky. Although I'll give Jalen credit. They were 1 pass away, 1 drop away from being 3-1 at that time when they were still a pass-heavy offense. So it's not like Jalen was, he was still turning the ball over at the start of the year, but he was making a lot of plays in the passing game too that were leading to wins. So I think people, though, I digress, I think people are suffering from recency bias where they truly forget, for a year and a half, Jalen Hurts was an MVP betting favorite. He was the runner-up in 2022, and for the first half of through 11 games, more than the first half of 2023, when the Eagles were 10-1 after that Bills win, he was FanDuel's betting favorite to win MVP. Like, he was the clear and obvious MVP winner 11 games through the year. And now, again, got to add proper context. The Eagles collapsed down the stretch, and he was a big part of that collapse. But Like, Jalen has proven that he can elevate. He is not some Brock Purdy game manager. And when you look at the numbers, Jalen Hurts in situations where the Eagles are throwing a lot, in high passing volume situations, the Eagles have a pretty good track record with Jalen Hurts. Like, they were a pass-first team, I think, through the first year and a half of this new championship-level run that the Eagles have been on over the last couple seasons. I mean, just look at the numbers. Jalen Hurts, when he throws at least 30 passing attempts in a single game, he's 21-9. I mean, that's an unbelievable record. Like, when the Eagles attempt 30 passing attempts or more in a football game with Jalen Hurts under center or in the shotgun, they've won 21 games and only lost 9. People forget that 2023 run during the gauntlet of that schedule in November and December, when the Eagles did get to a 10-1 record, Jalen Hurts was leading a team that was very inconsistent on defense, very inconsistent running the football with DeAndre Swift in the backfield. Jalen was leading that team in shootouts, passing the football, throwing 30-plus times a game, leading comebacks. I mean, he led 5 straight come-from-behind wins when the Eagles were trailing by 10 or more, which was tied for an NFL record. And like I said, Jalen Hurts, again, for a year and a half, he was a top 2 MVP betting favorite on FanDuel. So I think this narrative that's been forming around Jalen Hurts being a product of his system, like, yeah, obviously, again, the offense clearly elevates Jalen Hurts. Of course it does. He has the best offensive line in football. He has the best receiving core in football. He has the best running back in football. He has a top 5 tight end in football. Like, of course that's going to help Jalen Hurts. Of course a lot of quarterbacks could have success in that offense. But I think we've gone too far in discrediting Jalen's individual performance in a vacuum for the sake of propping up his support system. Like, I think if you put Jalen Hurts in a Chargers situation like Justin Herbert is in, or you put him in an offense that's not as good as Philadelphia, but still has like some weapons. It's not the New Orleans Saints offense. It's not the worst offense in football, but even the Saints offense, I think Jalen Hurts could elevate that football team. I think he proved that in 2021 when the Eagles made the playoffs with his first year starting. I think he proved, and again, in a vacuum, when you watch his individual performances, how he was able to elevate the Eagles offense, the weapons around him, the running backs around him before Saquon Barkley for that year and a half, Jalen proved that he can also elevate the running game. He can elevate the passing game. I just think he would elevate in a way that, again, evaluators wouldn't give him as much credit for, because it might not always be through just pocket passing. It might be through running the football and the deep ball and his clutch gene and his ability to be a leader and to always find a way to win in big games. Like, I don't think the Chargers would be the worst team in football if Jalen Hurts was their quarterback. I think they would be exactly who they are with Justin Herbert. I think they would be a wild card contender. With an average level offense, a supporting cast like that, Jalen wouldn't be nearly as good as he is in Philadelphia. Of course the offense makes him better. Nobody's, ignorant to that fact. But to think that Jalen Hurts doesn't make this offense better really grinds my gears. And again, I was just looking over why I'm just bringing this back up out of the blue on the show today, is I was just looking over some numbers today from Jalen over the last couple years. And when he does pass with volume, the Eagles have success. They're 21-9 when he's thrown over 30 passing attempts in a game. Again, in 2023, he's playing contender after contender for 2 months straight. The defense was not very good under Sean Desai, as he got fired halfway through the year. The offense, at least on the ground, was very inconsistent. And Jalen ripped off 5 straight comeback wins when the Eagles were trailing by at least 10 points or more, which, again, was an NFL record. So, I don't know. I think this narrative, because he, took a backseat to Saquon Barkley last year, people think that he's just a game manager. But for a year and a half, that 2022 and the first half of 2023, that run disproves that fact. And, oh, by the way, last year in the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl, that also disproves that fact, because, as I've said 1,000 times on the show, the Chiefs shut down Saquon Barkley, and Jalen Hurts, you had to throw the football to win that title, and Jalen Hurts threw the ball to win that title. He's been an MVP favorite for a year and a half of the last 3 years, so more than half of the time, or exactly half of the time, and also in that 3-year span, he's been a Super Bowl MVP. And he's had 2 of the best Super Bowl performances in the history of the NFL. So the proof is in the pudding. Hearing him talk in his press conference yesterday, like, yeah, it's all good and dandy that he's embracing this game manager role. And again, I think that's part of what makes Jalen elite, is that he's willing to change his play style. He's willing to be selfless and put the team over, individual accolades. But because he's saying these kind of things, because he was playing like that last year, and now his reputation, his identity is almost becoming that he's a game manager. And I just want to remind people that he is not that player. Just go back and watch his tape from 2022, his tape from the first 11 games of 2023. That's an MVP caliber player. Go back and watch the playoffs this year, the last 2 games, the 2 biggest games of the season. That is an MVP caliber player. And I think this year he's going to prove again that he's that guy. Again, they're not going to pass as much as they did in 2023. They're not going to pass as much as they probably did in 2022. But I think they are going to pass more than they did in 2024. And he's going to prove that with that added volume again, for the first time in a year, the efficiency is going to remain the same. And I think he'll clean up the mistakes that he made in 2023. Even when he was posting huge numbers, he was turning the football over. The first 4 games this year, they were almost 3-1 because of Jalen Hurts throwing the ball. But he was still turning the ball over. I think this year you'll see when the volume's increased, he's not going to go back to being that guy that's throwing 12 to 14 picks a year. I don't think so at all. I think he has evolved from that player, and I think we're going to see it. And again, it's not going to be every single week because Jalen's not going to demand that he throws 30-plus times every single game like Joe Burrow's going to have to, and Josh Allen will likely have to more this year. But there will be more of those instances this year than there were in 2024. And I'm excited to see Jalen prove people wrong again. I think that's one of the main things I'm excited about to watch in 2025. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, we will finish up today's show recapping day 2 of Eagles training camp practice at the NovaCare Complex. And I want to start with Adoree Jackson versus Kelee Ringo. I don't even know why we're bothering with Adoree Jackson getting first-team reps. I'll tell you why I feel that way coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in just one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. For me, it's interesting, too, because I spend a lot of money. Like, I spend a lot of money on eBay, vintage football, clothing, jerseys, hats, spend a lot on food delivery. That part I read about, tracking your spending in one place is huge because now with Monarch Money, I still spend, but I definitely save a lot more. And you can too. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. The Eagles wrapped up their second day of practice for 2025's training camp at NovaCare Complex just a few hours ago, and some of the big takeaways for me, most of them were on the defensive side of the football, and the first one I want to get into with you guys. Why are we wasting time with Adoree Jackson getting first-team reps? Yesterday, Kelee Ringo kicked off camp as the starting cornerback opposite Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. He is the favorite to win that job. But today, and I was wondering, is this going to be as much of an open competition as it felt like it was between Ringo and Isaiah Rodgers in training camp last year for what ended up not even being a spot available in the starting lineup? But that was a true open competition. I was wondering this year if it's going to be an open competition with Adoree Jackson. I would say no. I think Ringo definitely has the leg up, and they want Ringo to win the job. He would have to be really bad this summer, I think, to not be the starter. But it is interesting they're kind of giving Jackson some sort of chance. He started today with the first-team defense as the outside corner opposite Quinyon Mitchell. So Adoree Jackson was up first today on the first-team defense. Kelee Ringo was not. And for me, again, I understand wanting Kelee Ringo to earn the job. I totally understand that. But for me, my logic is, why are we even bothering, though, with Adoree Jackson getting these reps over Ringo? I kind of want Ringo to sink or swim. Let him be the guy, and if it doesn't work, go add somebody else. I don't think there's any scenario where Adoree Jackson is my starting corner, because if Kelee Ringo does not pan out, if he's not good this summer with the first team defense, if he struggles in the preseason, or maybe this does leak into the regular season and he's just too inconsistent for the Eagles defense, if he's just too inconsistent for Vic Fangio's liking, for Howie Roseman's liking, I don't think Adoree Jackson should be the plan B. I don't want to settle for Adoree Jackson. I don't think he's Isaiah Rodgers or Darius Slay. I don't. His coverage snap grades are okay from last year, but he barely played. He was barely a starter for the Giants defense. I think he's lost a step, and I don't think he's even on the level of an Isaiah Rodgers. I would rather go out there. If it's not Ringo this summer, during the preseason, during the regular season, I'm going out there and I'm signing Asante Samuel Jr. if he's still available. I'm going out there and bringing back Rasul Douglas. I'm going out there and maybe trading for somebody, like trading for a Greg Newsome from the Cleveland Browns. I just think those options are all better than Adoree Jackson. So again, I get it. You want Ringo to earn the job and not just hand it to him. But these are really meaningful first-team snaps that I think could help Ringo grow. And I just feel like it's, and again, he's still out there with the second team when Jackson's out with the starters. But I just think it's a waste of time. It's a waste of snaps. If Adoree Jackson, if you think he can beat out Ringo, then to me, go out there and add somebody else. I don't think very highly of Adoree Jackson. I don't think he has it in him to be a starter for 17 games this year and into the playoffs. Again, it's good to have a veteran with his starting experience, a guy that started double-digit games for, 4 to 5 years for a consistent amount of time. And he had some legit speed. Like, his speed was up there among cornerbacks in the NFL. I don't still see that on tape. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. He was still a solid player last year in coverage, but I just don't think for an entire season and in the playoffs for a Super Bowl favorite that he's even on Isaiah Rodgers or Darius Slay's level. I don't think that highly of him. And, hearing that he's getting first-team reps today, I don't know. I'm like, what are we doing here? I don't really agree with it. Again, I understand the making Ringo earn it, but I don't think this should be an open competition. I hope the majority of first-team reps, even if Jackson gets some to push Ringo in theory, I really do hope that by the end of this, the majority of reps are going to Ringo. And I'm probably getting upset over nothing because I think Ringo will be the starter. I think he's going to beat out Adoree Jackson. Ringo had a great spring. It sounded like he played A.J. Brown really well yesterday and today in one-on-ones, which is a tough ask because A.J. Brown statistically is the best one-on-one man-beating receiver in all of football. So he's going to win the job. But that's why I'm just like, why is Jackson starting today? I don't know. For me, I don't really understand it. He'd be my plan C at this point. Maybe not even. I kind of like Eli Ricks. I think Eli Ricks is going to be solid in year 3. Some other takeaways from practice today. Jordan Davis looks like a completely different human being. I mean, that guy is in amazing shape, and he gave the Peloton the credit for this. The cardio, like staying in shape this offseason was a big focus for him, so he can be more available on every down, every situation, obvious pass rushing situations. Like he wants to try to be an every down defensive tackle for this football team, which I totally agree with that. I really hope he can get to be that player. But I will take it with a grain of salt how he looks right now, the shape he's in right now, because I thought the same thing last year when I saw him at the Autism Challenge. I'm like, I literally ran by him when he was on his bike, and I'm like, that looks like a completely different human being. I can't believe that's Jordan Davis. He's come into training camp in incredible shape for multiple years. The big question is, when it's November, December, when it's playoff time, is Jordan Davis still in good shape? Is he still somebody you can rely on, not just on first and second down, but third down? Can he play an entire drive every single snap? Can he go get the quarterback effectively every play deep into the playoffs? And I will say, I will give him credit. Last year, he did stay in good shape in the playoffs. He had a sack in the NFC title, in the Super Bowl, but he also did play a career low amount of snaps in Fangio's defense. Like, he was below 40%. He was at, I believe, like 32% of the snaps. That was a career low for Jordan Davis. And he's gotten out of shape in other past years, too. So it's not about how he looks, how he feels in July. It's going to be about who does this guy look like in November, December. And if he's proving me wrong then, that's when I'm comfortable giving him a contract extension. I think they'll do it anyway because he's a great two-down run stopper. But if he wants to get the big bucks, if he wants to be the Dexter Lawrence type of player that can also affect the quarterback consistently, that's what's got to happen. He's got to stay in shape deep into the season. But I'll give him credit. Right now, he looks really good. And Nolan Smith was even saying, like, Davis was out-conditioning him in practice. Like, there were times that Nolan Smith was tired and JD was still going. And that's definitely good to hear. Another interesting takeaway, Cooper DeJean continues to play safety in base packages. And again, that's not super relevant because the Eagles will play in nickel the majority of their time. They barely play base defense. But I will say why it is a little bit more noteworthy this year compared to last year, why I do think it's more noteworthy that he's playing safety and base, is because I do think they'll play some more base this year. Now, again, it's not going to be the majority of the time on defense. They're not going to play base. It's going to be nickel, dime, 5-2. There's going to be different looks. But when they do play base, I think DeJean will play safety, and I do think they'll play base more this year. Why? Because they have 3 linebackers I think they're going to want on the field at times this year. Jahad Campbell, Nakobe Dean, and Zach Bond. I think there will be certain instances where there are not 3 cornerbacks on the field. And when there's only 2, does DeJean bounce to the outside in place of Kelee Ringo on the boundary as outside cornerback 2 opposite Quinyon Mitchell? Or does he take Makuba's spot, Sidney Brown's spot next to Reed Blankenship at safety? I like that they're preferring that he plays safety over boundary corner because I do think there will be more of those packages this year when Nakobe Dean's healthy. Again, it'll be a sub-package of the defense still. It's not going to be a focal point of the defense. But when they do that, I like that Fangio's putting DeJean at safety and not outside corner. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Still got another show for you this week. Make sure you check out the squad show that my guys, Mark Farzetta, Jason Martias, and Harry Mays post on our YouTube channel. That's also available on all podcast platforms. I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks so much again for making us your first listen each and every day. Until tomorrow, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.